Okay, so we've moved on quite nicely. What we've also done, you might be able to see just down here, we've put the radar warning receivers on. Now, as I said, kit specific, make sure yours has this particular type. Basically, it's 3 types. None at all, okay? The short little one like this one's got, or they do a long version. The kit itself only comes with the short version, but say check your references for some of your markings and everything else, because some of them have the long one. We've gone around as well, right the way around the kit, and taken care of any lumps, bumps, little niggles, any little gaps, anything like that with a little bit of filler, Mr. Surfacer. It's all drying off now, so we can leave that now to totally go off. And then we come back, we can sand up, and it'll be ready for prep work. Now, 2 little things we need to do. First of all is the actual cockpit area itself. Now, we've put the front canopy on the front, and we've got this main one installed as well. But what we've got here is the rear part. Now, these are ones that I don't like particularly. I don't like it when the glass part directly butts up to the actual the plastic part itself, because getting them at the right spread and the right width is a real pain in the bum really. I prefer them to be like the 148 version, where it's just in one. It's one piece moulded, we've moulded all in clear, we can mask around, paint up and job done. These as well are particularly boring, shall we say, on the inside. So we've got photo etch parts, which are these ones here, which are for the insides of these panels and bits and pieces like that. So we can take care of all of them and liven them up. A bit of dry brushing and all the rest of it will take care of it. So we've got to do a little bit of clean-up work on this one. So we just find a strong file these in. So not worried massively about these inside parts, because we're going to go around and obviously paint them up afterwards. So we just give these a quick sand over. Now, you've got a choice. You can either paint it first, just like this one, okay? Paint it like this, put all the photo etch in and then the glass bit in afterwards, or you can put it in together as one, and then obviously you can mask up and go around it afterwards. Now, the thing is, between the two, when you look at the reference photos, there's like a little sandwich area that goes on, so you can actually mask up a little bit higher on the clear part, okay, and then go across, and that way if you've got any glue little marks in there, they'll all be hidden and taken care of. A couple of things I want to show you on these. To be honest, you always want to check is that they're nice and clear. You want them to be crystal clear, and you don't want them to be that sort of scratchy, foggy type look to them. If they are, you can do a couple of tips. Dipping them into clear gloss first, letting them out, go completely hard. Drawback to that is when you're masking them over and things like that, they can be a little bit of a nightmare. Now, we've got the little sprue tab on the end here, so we're just going to nip that off with a nice pair of scissors, okay? And you might be able to see we've got that white mark just down in there. So what we want to do is sand away these areas. So we're coming in with a fine sanding stick first, just to take that one little edge of it off, okay? And then what we're going to use is a polishing sponge, he says, wherever it's gone. Need to get it out of the way. I had it in my hand a moment ago. There we go. Okay, so we've got the polishing sponge, we've got the green side here. I'm just wetting it. Normally I don't wet them, but I do for this type of work. Okay, and all we're going to do is literally lightly rub it right over. And immediately you can probably see it's tainted it and made it fog. Cut to the white side. Okay, and we can polish it up and put it back to exactly how it was, being crystal clear again. Okay, so then what we're doing, this one looks like it's got a tiny little defect down at this back edge. You're not going to worry about too much, because what we've done, we've polished this one up. When we've totally finished the model, we'll go around with a little bit of polish on a cloth and just polish up these little areas completely. But that little white lump, we are never going to totally lose. We can get rid of it a little bit, but because it's fractured in the actual the plastic itself, you know, it's one of those things, and there isn't a great deal of things you can do to get rid of it. What we're going to do is just run a blade, just taking off the inside edge, it's a little bit rough, and what I don't want to do is end up sanding it down too far, because otherwise it's not going to join up with this one totally. So we're basically happy just like that. We're going to come along and marry the two up and make sure they all fit. The spread is okay, everything else is like that. Quite happy with how that one is. So what we can do before we pop this one on, we can mask it up. So two choices. Very, very thin tape, something like this type of stuff, Jammy Dog stuff, okay, and you can just go around the outsides and then mask up the inside, clear gloss. Or you can grab yourself a little bit of, like this, 6mm Tamiya tape. Alright, and then all we do, come along, okay, and then all we're going to do is come on from the inside as we said. So we're leaving basically around about a 1/2 mm gap right the way over. And there's a slight curve to this, okay? So that's that one in just like that. You take your sharp scissors, you can do that, and then what we're going to do is just going to walk this up over the top, following there's a panel line along that one. It's going to go right over the top, just like that. Now I'm not snipping them off for the minute, I'll just use them, okay, and then we're going to come in similar distance, about a 1mm gap, but say these do curve a little bit, so we're just going to curve it with it. Okay, then the tricky one, because this is the curve over the back and because there's nothing to go along to, so what we're going to do, we're going to guess about a 1mm, or really about a 1/2 mm gap, put it on, and what we're going to do is lightly crimp as we go around, okay, so we're getting a nice curve, so we pull on, pull off, go around, and you're sort of curving it all round the back, if you like. And what you want is the tape to nicely bend, and you're looking for a similar distance. Like that one, to be honest, is a little bit cut. There we go, so it's all on there, just like that. So you look at it, make sure you're happy with it. If you're happy with how that is, then what I do, take a nice sharp knife like so. And to be honest, that's not the sharpest one I've ever seen, so what we're going to do, we're just grab. This is why I like disposable knives, you can do this with, okay? We just hold this back in one, and we just snip one off. We've got a nice fresh point on there to use now, so we can just come in, okay? And then what we're going to do is follow that edge of the tape, just down like this, so we're just going to follow it round. Just like that, and then that one peels away. Same on the other side as well. And this one we just got to take a little, got a small curve in the bottom. So we're following him down, a little curve. Same with this fella. This one here we're just going to lightly score, just lightly, so we can peel that one back off. This one's just playing up a little bit, so we just concentration. Off like that one. Same, curving round. Just going to dent it in with my nail so it's got something to follow. Okay, and just coming round and then up. Little curve at the end just to pull it up, and there we go, that's that one on. So then you can use your offcuts just to fill this guy in, like I do, like these. Okay, and then obviously you can use something more to go round. Now the thing is, you can do exactly the same for the underside, okay, just to take care of that. Or you can, once you've got it in, you can glue it in, okay, once you're happy that it's glued in, because you're going to be spraying from the underside as well, tape the entire thing, so everything underneath here is completely masked up, and then do it, or you can just paint it or hand brush it by hand, whichever way is easier for you. So if we just grab a slightly bigger stuff, okay, so we'll just pop this one around here, snip off. Like so. Tiny bit more. Now you're happy with it and you know exactly it's all in, all looking okay, check your lines, make sure they're all exactly how you're looking, make sure the corners are all done. You can come along. Now obviously there's various glues that will claim to be crystal clear and they set lovely and all the rest of it. I do like to use PVA glue. The reason I like using PVA glue is if it does go wrong, you can literally just cut it away very easily and pull it off and re-glue it in afterwards, which could be the case with something like this or anything with the front of a cockpit. Perhaps if you imagine that you've put your cockpit all together, you know, like on this one, you've done it all lovely, you unmask it and then you suddenly find out that you've got dust all inside. With it PVA, you can just easily cut it with a knife, score it, peel it off, clean it up, the plastic part, glue it back down, away you go. For those of you who are long-term watching me do this, you'll remember with the Hawkeye was a classic example that actually I went in there, put it all together, everything. When it came for final reveal, that next thing you know, I had a bit of a problem because I had loads of dust inside. So I just cut out one of the windows, dead easy because it's PVA, got in there, wiped it around, stuck it back in afterwards. Exactly the same type of effect with this. So what we can do now, we can come along and glue this little fella in. Okay, so what we'll do, I'm going to take, this is Gator glue, but normal PVA glues are good. All we do is run a little lip of it right the way around. As I say, we're just trying to keep a nice even amount. Same on this, so if you pull the cocktail stick back or your toothpick back as you place it on, you'll be left with a nice edge of it. Okay, remember if it does go too far you can wipe this stuff off. Okay, careful how you're holding it. Just going to give it a second. What I'm waiting for it to do is just sort of go from being bright white to slightly clear. Then I know it's starting to go off and it means it will give it a bit of a bite when it sticks to it. So we're just going to come along and we're just going to plonk here in the back and on the front. And we're having a look around to see how it's fitting. And I must admit that is definitely more by fluke than by practice, but that one's gone on exactly where we want it. Now because we've got that little area, the gap running around it, I don't want to handle this too much because this is when it goes wrong. Okay, but these little gaps, we've got these little clear parts underneath will allow us a margin for error when we're painting. Okay, so we can paint up into those gaps slightly and have it all on there and it won't matter too much if we go slightly over, but that's actually quite a nice fit on there. So what I'm going to do, we're going to leave it a few minutes just to start drying. As soon as it starts drying, same as we did with the front cockpit, wet cotton bud all the way around just to get rid of all the excess glue and everything else like that. So I'm going to do the same for the rear one in exactly the same fashion. Okay, and then that way we've got our canopies all fitted onto here. I'm going to place that one there just for the moment. And what we can do is, as I say, once we've got some paint on, we can go around and finish them up and get them sorted. Next thing up is going to be undercarriage. Okay, now undercarriage is going to be one of those areas where it's going to be a little bit of messing around and playing with. The reason I say that, because of the kit of its weight, it's actually got metal undercarriage which come in this very nice bag, and for some reason is in 3 separate bags. Okay, so we'll just get this one out. Okay, so instead of being straightforward white metal undercarriage or plastic, it's both. Now I can see the logic behind this one, because obviously what you want to do is need quite a bit of strength, because especially with us, we've got resin in the front, we've got resin down the back here, you know, and obviously everything's going to go with it. So it is going to be very heavy. What you don't want is obviously the plastic over time to start bowing, and before you know it, you've got a phantom on its knees purely because of the weight. Okay, white metal I have seen some companies, shall we say, they make white metal ones, and it's quite soft, and I've seen them bend, actually, the actual hubs, if you like, actually bending up with the wheel because of the weight on there over time as well. So in some ways, something like this, of where you've got, joint parts, is probably quite a nifty way of getting around the situation, because as I say, you have got both. Don't worry about too much of the detail, obviously, on these parts, because they're going to be covered up. But this one down the back, you've got some little things. So usual things, take out seam lines as you would. You'll find that your files and your various bits and pieces will work just as well on this as it will everything else. So you put those on, same thing. Come along with polishers and sanders and give them a polish up, and you'll find that they'll come up really, really nice. Very, very shiny with no problems at all. So that's quite a nice finish you get with those as well. So what we've got to do now is pop these together. Now I've got reference photos from the Phantom book as well that show how these parts go on. So I've got little tabs. I've taken them, cleaned them up a little bit, but there's a little bit obviously going to be left on there. So what we're going to do is, he says, looking for the instructions on this as well, because I want to make sure we get this one right. So for a change, I will be following the instructions. So for this main undercarriage part, okay, we've got the long side, it's going to go down, and in here you've got little pins which are going to line up with what goes on the inside. Okay, so we've got these little pinholes you can see in here. Say it will follow suit. So he says, holding this hopefully the right way and everything that goes with it. We're looking for it to go something like this. It's going to fit on to the other side, and then we've got, hoping he's got it the right way around. Here we go. These which are going to fit in, I'm going to go round it and cover it up. So say this part here has made up the other half of the leg. This one going round the front. Okay, that's nicely on. So we'll take a little bit of glue, just running it down the front, just to glue these two halves roughly together. As I say, it's nothing particularly flash about this, it's just roughly getting it in the right area. So we just push them in to get as good a fit on those as we possibly can. Okay, so that one's on, so we'll just run up. And I say, those ejector pin tabs and things, we will take care of those afterwards. Okay, so that's that one on. And then obviously we've got little parts which are going to go onto these which do need a small clean up. Okay, so we'll just use a knife just to pop in here. Just to take care of that. And then we've got this little joint just down in here. This little fella will fit in there. Okay, it's all in there quite nice. Now what you can do here, down this metal part here, we'll be able to polish this up, which is quite a nice touch, because then it obviously it will show through just like that. But as I say, this is where we're going to deviate slightly from the kit part. Okay, for this one we're going to be using these guys. Now these are the resin wheels. Now the reason for using the resin is, obviously we've got the plastic ones which will go on here, they all screw in, everything else like that. Trouble with that is, and it's only a small little criticism, because it's rubber tyres, it's very hard to make them flat. You can cut them and melt them and everything else, but when they're resin ones, they're a lot easier to make into flat tyres and things like that. So if we just get one of these out to show you. He says, opening it up the wrong way. What we have in the little box here is these little yellow guys. Now these are chocks, which will be a nice touch for what we'll need a little bit later on. Okay, and then what we've actually got in here is these lovely cast resin wheels. Now the great thing about these resin wheels is, say, we can flatten them off to make a flat spot to look like it's got weight on the actual wheel itself. But also you've got the tyre tread manufacturer and everything in, and they are very nicely done. I must admit the detail on these is far superior to the kit one. So what will happen is these resin ones will come along and actually they will screw in just the same way as it does on the kit of actually putting these wheels on, but we can't put these on yet because obviously we want to do them as a separate piece. So what we can do in the meantime If you're following the kit ones, you can screw the hubs on and paint them white and everything else. As I said, we're doing those slightly separate. Okay, so what we can do is we can just clean up these little fellas here. So I'm using a knife purely for speed. You should really sand these off, guys. Okay, there's one, there's two. Now these are going to clamp around the sides of the nose wheel. Okay, so let's make sure we get this all in the right area. I'm just making sure we've got the right ones for the right pieces. So what we want to do is, I think it must be this one, it's going to come in the bottom. This is why I'm just double checking. Now we're going to use a touch of super glue because we're gluing onto white metal, and obviously white metal and glue normally don't go. So what we're going to do is just going to pop that one in like that. Okay, which gives it on in just the right location. Just like that. We'll just give it a squirt of kicker, purely for speed on my part, so I can show you guys exactly what we're doing. Okay, we're going to need a tiny bit of super glue just down in this bottom. There's a bottom groove just down in there as well. Okay, so we've got that one in, and then what we can do is we should be able to sit that one in. Okay, what we need to do is level him out a little bit, and there we go. That gives us our spring system on. And obviously don't forget, it's not square, it's off to one side. It's supposed to be off to one side, okay? So as I say, if you're looking straight down on it, it should look something like that. You don't want it round to the front. You might be thinking it should be here. It's not, it's off to one side. Alright, so what we can do, when we paint this up, we'll be able to sand back this metal, okay, to have this metal colour showing through. So there we go, that one is the nose wheel exactly done. We're going to do the same for the main legs as well. They're going to go exactly the same way as well. Get them on. We'll get these cut off of their little tabs and everything else, so we can see exactly how we can go about putting in the flat spots and things like that in a moment. But first of all, we'll get these main gear done and put those together. Alright then, so we're basically ready for clearing all this away and priming. A couple of bits I want to go over with you, in case you wonder what we've done. Down the back here, we've opened up this little port, little photo etch part that goes on there. This is where the drag chute housing is and goes in there. And then, he says, I'm going to try and get it out of the little pot. We've got the little rear housing part that obviously then will be on a hinge system and showed opened up. So we've put that on now, and what we want to do is put on any photo etch parts that you've got going. Now obviously I've got a photo etch set here, which is for a few little external points all over this, putting them together, things as you can imagine. The other things as well, we've done the weapons pylons, obviously they're all fitted and all ready to go on, so they should just clip in. They're a nice fit. You're not going to have to worry about gluing those and things like that if you want to have them as a loose fit for obviously transportation. They're a nice solid fit going on those, so we don't have to worry about them too much. The other thing we've done, we've just popped around and painted up black in the inside here by hand. Now, it's there again, we've got photo etch parts to go on here, but they're things we can take care afterwards, because what I want to do is fit the actual canopies on. Two reasons for doing it. One, we can tell it's a perfect fit. Obviously we've gone around and we're all happy of how it's all fitted and it's all in there nice and snug and we've got no gaps and joins in between them. And secondly, obviously it saves us having to mask it up because we can spray it all at the same time. There again, we're going to go around afterwards and touch it up a few little bits and pieces. The other thing that also I did, just to point out, we spoke about doing this internal front part here using the PVA glue and everything else and cleaning it up afterwards. Also what I've done is just use a little bit of the Mr. Surfacer, just run a little bit around the outside, and then we went around with the cotton bud as we did all the other joints and everything and just took away any excess. And I did the same for when I fitted the radar warning receivers because I wanted them to be perfect and no gaps around them And obviously it's plastic onto resin, so it's super glue, so you do get the odd little gap. So I took care of that at the same time. Other things we're just going to do is just to smooth up and flatten out obviously these, because it's going to be very noticeable because we're going to have the wings folded up position. Same for the flaps and these ailerons at the back. Obviously the flaps are going to be locked in the up position as they are in Phantoms, but the ailerons by hydraulics do relax a little bit. So you don't want to have a join between the two ones. Same goes for the trailing edge. There's a little bit of a thickness to it. So what I've done is just sanded it down and rounded it off just a little bit as I went round it. So what I'm doing now is I'm going over the entire of the model and basically fitting all the panels we've taken off. So what we've had to do is obviously thin out these side ones which are going on here. They're going to be stuck back in. So then what can happen is we can take them all off once it's painted and go around and do all that nice detailing work and weathering and everything else. But just for basics, it's just protected them up. Same with this spine. What I'm going to do as well is take off the actual spine here, and I'm going to fit a very bit of I can actually do it now. It's a little bit of 40mm Tamiya tape. So let's try to find it. Just around it. Now really this is just to sort of protect it just a little bit. It's a bit too much so if we do it in stages, but obviously because we've got cabling in here we don't want to pull that cabling off. So what we're going to do is rub this on your jumper or something, pick up lots of fibres so it's just fairly tacky. Okay, and then you can come in, obviously I'll do this properly in a moment, but we can mask up in this inside area. This is just a rough one to show you, just like this. We're still going to then put the spine over the top, but it will protect all that plumbing and work that we've done down in there. Obviously we're still going to super detail up a few little areas around the back here, but the things I can do afterwards, and at that stage we can really work out, you know, how it's going to go. Once that's on, we can glue tack this down into position and away we go. The other thing as well, we've put on the actual this top panel. Make sure you get the right one, because obviously the Air Force one has the air refueling receptacle goes in here, the Navy one obviously doesn't. But there again, I've just put a bit of tape on the back. We'll do all those afterwards. So really we're to the point where you just want to pop round and make sure that you've got no obvious lumps and bumps, perhaps little glue marks and things like that. You might as well sand them off now before we get in with the primer work. But as I said, we've got all the gear done now, and obviously the wheel wells, doors and that, all sorted out, all ready for painting. So what we can do now, clear all this away completely and get this into the spray bay.